Hi, always.
There we go. Hello. Good to see you,
How are
Aditi.
you? Good to see you too. Am I pronouncing your name right?
Oasis.
Oasis.
I
Wait,
usually just say like Oasis and then drop the last syllable.
Oasis, I love it. That's awesome. How's your day?
Great. I'm excited to present. It was kind of fun like putting the slides together and figuring out like how do I want to present this story. So
I know.
thank you for encouraging me to do that.
Of course, I'm excited for folks to get to know, your story. I made you a co-host. So if you have to share your screen, you can share your screen.
Okay, perfect.
Uh,
Um,
I'm
Slide.
going to give like a couple of minutes for people to trickle in. I sound so corporate-y by saying that. Oh gosh.
How are things going with your EB1 project? Or
Oh, good. Oh, good. I'm currently at my sister's place. So, having fun with the kids. Um, Sometimes you just have to tune off.
nice.
Yeah. What about you? How's it going with you?
Good. Yeah, I've made a lot of progress on the product and have been like showing it to people. So
Yeah,
that's been fun. And I'll do a demo as well today. So hopefully
do
everyone on
it.
this call will get to see where it's
Do
at.
it. I am excited for people to get a flavor of what's it like to use AI.
Mhm.
How do you divide your day, by the way? Just curious.
I think well, my week I tried to do like 50% coding and then 50% like outreach, talking to users.
Mm,
Like yeah, like my current stage is like the product is still in development, so I don't want
mm,
to. I haven't been publicizing it very widely, but I've been trying to
mm.
like talk to early users and see how it works for them and improve it based on that feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Coding and outreach. Yeah, it's intense. I respect you, Luis.
It's very
Akshay.
helpful having all the different like Slack groups and like your Slack group. I talked to
Yeah,
a bunch of
yeah.
people through that.
It's a
Um,
lonely journey, like building EB1, building O1, doing anything that is outside the norm gets really lonely. So it's always nice to have people. So it's cool. Let's see, let's invite some folks in. Isha, Akshay, Ankit, Tanusha, Bharat. Digital bridges, and you are in an avatar format. How are you, my friend? No idea who it is. Isha, Kanav, Meghna, Norman, Sanat, Sanjana, Ali, welcome.
Hi, Aditi.
How are
Hello.
you?
All. Yeah, I just heard about the Slack community you were talking about
Did
for
you?
EB.
Okay, I'll share this with you. I'll share it in the comments so that
Okay.
people can access it. But I know time is of the essence because we want to respect Oasis time. So we are going to get started in 105, 107. Is that cool? Himaja, how are you?
I think
Shiji, hi.
still connecting to audio.
I think so.
Hi.
Hello, Ramchandra. Nice to meet you. Two Alis. Dang. Ooh, exciting stuff. What are your plans after this session? Asking you always.
Oh, for me, well, so I live in Brooklyn in
Mm.
Park Slope, and I don't know, there's like a thing where people are going onto their like stoops, like the front of their houses, and like singing
Mhm.
songs or something between 3 to 7 p.m. So I'm gonna walk around my local neighborhood and see what this is all about. It's a really nice day today as well, so looking forward to being outside.
Mm. Is it is COVID back? Because all of this used to happen during COVID times where people are just doing
Oh,
random things.
I hope COVID is not back. I am acting as though it's not
But
back.
was it ever gone though? Always.
It's
That's the
gone.
question.
Uh,
Was it
um,
ever gone? That's the
I think it's gone. I don't
question.
know. I feel like some groups, like there's like one group I'm part of that's like a meditation group, and
Mm.
the host will ask people to do COVID tests before like showing up, and it feels a
Oh.
little strange these days. I don't know.
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
sometimes it resurges.
So, I mean, I live in Jersey City, and there's this couple, and they're really old. Like, I should like give that uh, caveat that they're very pretty old. And then when I'm in the elevator, or anybody's in the elevator, they will stand diagonally on the other side and like face the other way. And I'm like, is this caution or is this discrimination? I'm yet to understand. So, but I should give them the benefit of the doubt. But that is again seems very excessive. But again, like I mean, they are at risk, so I get it. All right, I think this is a good time to kick it off with Awais. We are gonna invite people as they trickle in, but I'm really excited for people to listen to Awais. Awais and I, fun fact, did meet up in New York City. We went for Thai food, and Awais started talking about how he had a very textured professional and educational background, which I really enjoyed listening to. He's from the UK, but his roots are in Pakistan, and then he came to the US to get his bachelor's in philosophy and physics, something like that, at Harvard. And I'm like, dang, that is interesting. And then he went backpacking through India, and then he worked for a YC-backed unicorn in Africa. And now he's back in the US. He got his O1 approved. Word on the street is that he has his EB2 NIW approved, and he's building an AI tool to help folks figure out and make this journey a little less choppy. So I'm excited for you to hear from Awais, and I'm excited to hear again from Awais. Please keep your questions to the very end. This is how it's going to work. Awais is going to talk for the next 15 to 20, 25-ish minutes. And then we're going to open the floor for you to ask one-on-one questions to Awais. We are going to end sharp at 2 p.m. And I'm also going to drop the Slack community link in the chat if you'd like to join. Thank you again, Awais, for talking to us, and over to you.
Cool. Thank you so much. That was a great intro. So yeah, happy to talk a little bit about my story. I'll present my slides. Yeah, I kind of want to do this more just like my personal story. Like I'm not an immigration lawyer. I don't know like a ton about what every single O1 case looks like, but people have found it helpful to hear about my story. So I'm just gonna try to focus quite narrowly on that. So yeah, let's get into it. So I'll begin at the company I previously worked at, which was called Wave. And Wave was doing like financial technology in Africa, but had a ton of US employees and a lot of US engineers. And so they moved me to the US on an L1 visa. And while I was at Wave, like I got to see how amazing startups can be from the inside. Like I joined as a really early engineer. They only had like 10,000 users. And then 4 years later, when I left, they had like 10 million plus users, had raised money at like a $1.7 billion valuation. And, you know, like if you go to Senegal now, you will just see like this penguin everywhere because tons of people are using Wave as their like primary banking system. They like receive their salaries into Wave. They like pay for their groceries with Wave. It was just like a really cool story. And my thought was like, wow, this is amazing. Like maybe it's time for me now to use all this experience and build a startup of my own. But obviously I was on an L1 visa. I could not do that on the L1. So I started exploring like what would it take for me to remain in the US and build like a company of my own, like become a founder. Um, so I like did some reading and then I spoke to an immigration lawyer and he started throwing around these words like, oh, you could be, you know, a good candidate for the national interest waiver, or you could go for the O1, like the extraordinary ability visa. And like at this point, I felt like I had done a decent amount of reading and like found blog posts, found the USCIS guidance, and had just self-selected out of these things. I was like, okay, there's no way I'm eligible for a national interest waiver. Like I'm not working on rockets that go to the moon, or I'm not working on like curing cancer. Like clearly there's no way that's for me. And also like the extraordinary ability visa, I was like, I'm not that extraordinary. Like I've had a pretty average career. Like there's no way I qualify for that. So I was like looking at alternative options. But it was very helpful for the lawyer to like tell me these things. And yeah, like I think the reasons why I self-selected out of this are like quite obvious when I go back to some of the USCIS guidance. Like this is directly from the policy manual, and it's like to qualify for the O1, you have to be like a small percentage who have arisen to the very top of your field. And it's just like I think incredibly intimidating. And I feel like the language that USCIS uses is yeah, intimidating, potentially even misleading compared to like how they actually adjudicate some of these petitions. And this will be like a theme for the rest of the talk. So yeah, like my insight from this was that one of the most valuable things that my immigration lawyer did for me was just make me aware of my options. Like I, at that point, was like, these two visas I definitely don't qualify for. And just having someone who could say, no, actually, like I've done petitions for people who look very similar to you and they've been approved at like a really high rate, like you should go for one of these, I think was really valuable. And when we got into the product that I'm building, like partly what I want to do is to like make this service available at scale so that you don't have to like find an immigration lawyer and consult with them in order to like learn about what your options are. So yeah, so I filed my O1 petition. Here's like a brief timeline. I wrote a blog post about my experience, which I think is like shared in the Slack group. Someone can share in the chat. It just goes through like exactly what my O1 process was. But the main thing was that it just was quite quick and easy based on the profile I had already built. Like I didn't have to go out and do a lot of extra stuff. Like yeah, just based on my previous work history, was already pretty like ready to file. And I think there might be people like that either like on this call or like watching later. Okay. So yeah, after I wrote this blog post, it like ended up going a little viral on Hacker News. And I ended up seeing comments like this. So I don't know if people are familiar with Hacker News, but it's kind of famous for being a little bit of a gauntlet in terms of what people post. So someone had millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, advanced degrees, worked for high profile institutions. Like essentially, I think comments like this contribute to the feelings that people have of like, oh, there's no way I would get an O1, there's no way I would get an EB2 NIW. Here's another comment that I like, which is quite specific, which is, at least to me, he doesn't meet the extraordinary ability intent of the visa. And the great thing for us is that USCIS does not care what this random HN throwaway account thinks. It's very precisely defined, like what counts as extraordinary and what doesn't. And it's not just a like colloquial random person on the street, like, do they think you're extraordinary or not? So like that's one of the benefits, is that it's all incredibly precisely defined. Here's like the specific place in the law where it's defined. For the O1, at least, they go through like the 8 different ways, or you have to meet at least 3 of the 8 criteria. And if you meet those criteria, then according to the law, according to USCIS standards, you are extraordinary. And it doesn't matter like if a random friend or a random person thinks like you're extraordinary or not. Okay. So yeah, these are the 8 criteria. And I think that like another reason why the O1 can be confusing is because there are so many different possible ways to meet these criteria. Like in the last few weeks, I've been talking to a lot of different O1 recipients and like prospective O1 candidates, and it feels like people can have such a broad range of different profiles. Like you only have to meet 3 of the 8 criteria, and for each of the criteria, you can meet them in so many different ways. So I almost prefer to think of it not as like, let's meet 3 of the 8, or like, yeah, actually, I prefer to think of it in terms of like archetypes. So here are some of the different like versions of O1 petitions I've seen. And you can tell that they're quite different from each other. So one is like the founder archetype, which is like if you start your own company and raise some money, then suddenly you become like a really good O1 candidate because the money that you've raised counts as an award according to USCS criteria. If you went through like an accelerator, then that can count as a membership. Since you're the founder of your own company, you can argue that that's like a critical role. And if like the critical role one is a little subtle because you also have to argue that your company has like a distinguished reputation. But if you've raised money or if you have users, or if you can argue for distinguished reputation in some other way, then you can likely meet this criteria. And if you've like generated any press by being a founder, you can also hit that criteria. So yeah, I think this is one. If you're an academic, you can also do the O1, but you'll probably have a very different looking profile and petition. So like academics will have scholarly articles that they've published probably as part of their career. They've probably peer reviewed other people's work, which counts as judging. If any of their research has been like used more broadly by other people, either in industry or like other academics, then that can count as original contribution. And if your papers have been covered in the press, like, or you've been interviewed about your papers, then like suddenly you meet the press criteria. So yeah, I think there's like lots of different ways to meet the O1 criteria. Okay. I think I'll show a few other ones. This one I'm calling influencer, which is like if you're a very visible person, like you post a lot on social media or a lot of people know you, then you may like have press about you, or you may have like won awards as a result of that, or you may have been invited to judge things as a result of that. So like you could meet the O1 criteria in this way. If you have been in like big tech for a long time, I've seen people who meet like these kinds of criteria. So they are pretty senior, so they're like highly compensated relative to other people in the field. They can typically argue critical role based on like letters of support from their manager. So if you like work at Amazon and you worked on a really key product, then you can typically argue that you are like really important to the organization, and like the distinguished reputation piece ends up being obvious because it's like a huge company. Judging is interesting. I spoke to someone in the last few weeks who basically argued that because he was a manager and had been doing like performance reviews for his like junior people, that counts as judging. He was the only person who told me that. I don't know if it necessarily counts if you're just like evaluating people within your company. But if you've been like invited to judge hackathons as a result of your job, like that can also count. And original contribution, like if you've worked on technologies within your company that are like novel or new in the industry. So I don't know, you can think of like Google developing like BigQuery and all of this stuff, like new technologies that move the industry forward. Even if it's part of your job, like that can be used as original contribution. And then, yeah, the last one I put is like profile builder, which is like some people, I've heard of a few people who have done this, which is like started from having not very much, but then proactively working to build their O1 profile. And from what I've heard, the easiest ones tend to be like get invited to judge a competition, or like join a membership organization, or get some press about work that you've done. Cool. Okay. And for me, the criteria I met were awards because I had raised a small amount of money from my startup, high comp, which was while I was working at Wave, the equity that I had received counts towards the high compensation criteria. So that's like one way to meet this. Original contribution was just based on work I had done at Wave, so I didn't need to go out and like do any additional work for this. I could just present some of the like internal technological stuff that I had worked on at Wave. And critical role, I argued both for Wave, the previous company, and the new company I was working on. For each of them, I had to argue that like I was an important part of the company, and also that the company had a distinguished reputation. And anyone who wants more details can find them in the blog post. Okay, so I thought, are people interested in seeing my O1 petition? Maybe by like show of hands. I feel like it's
Do it.
helpful to see this, so
Absolutely.
okay. I'll just share so you can see. Yeah, you can just see what it looks like. to make this argument. So this was prepared by an immigration lawyer in 2022. There's a bunch of like background stuff, just like summarizes the rest. There's a lot of like teaching USCIS how to like adjudicate the case. And I think this is mainly to prevent RFEs or like prevent kind of a back and forth with USCIS. Like the lawyer just proactively said, hey, like the preponderance of the evidence standard means this, like it, you only have to show like X, Y, and Z. And like he cites the relevant laws or the relevant cases, sorry, where those precedents were established. And then these were the 4 criteria I met. So awards, critical role, original contribution, and high compensation. And yeah, this is just like as part of the O1, you have to have certain letters of recommendation. And so the lawyer included those up front. I think they call them like advisory opinions. This is like what I was planning to work on. So yeah, the awards one was interesting because like investment funding is maybe not such a traditional award. My lawyer cited the relevant parts that basically establish like why it is that investments count as an award. And he cited like the relevant places in the policy manual. And I don't know, like I had only raised 100,000 in funding at this point, so it wasn't like it wasn't huge. It wasn't like a $2 million round from like major VCs. It was like 100K from like mostly angel investors. And I had to kind of submit in the letters of support, arguing that the people who are investing like don't invest in tons of companies or like invest in a small percentage of the opportunities that are presented to them. Yeah, and these are all included in the exhibits below, which I won't show today. Then for critical role, so yeah, we argued on both of them. So like Path was the new company that I'm working on, and Wave Mobile Money was the old one. And then for each of them, have to argue like that my role is really important. In Wave's case, this was done through like letters of support, quoted here, and included in full below. And then Wave's, where is it? Yeah, like Wave's reputation was basically shown through like press about Wave, and like there was a lot of it, and we included it all in the exhibits. And then for Path, it was like the opposite, where like as a founder, I had a very important role to the organization. So this is a lot shorter and sorry, like yeah, I had a very important role, so that's like kind of obvious. But the distinguished reputation piece is more difficult. So he like quoted a bunch of stuff and argued that like the funding that we had raised counts as like distinguished reputation. So yeah, you can tell from this that like the company was still really early, but the lawyer was able to formulate an argument that was persuasive to USCIS. And then the last one was high comp, which is just like benchmarked against, oh, sorry, this is original contributions. Yeah, I think that's like harder to understand. It's like quite specific to Wave. Yeah, and then high comp was just benchmarked to like Bureau of Labor Statistics and this like career one-stop website. Yeah, and that's like the bulk of the petition basically. And then the other 300 pages are like copied and pasted evidence. Cool. All right. Should I pause for questions now, Additif, or should I jump straight into like the demo portion?
Let's do a little bit of questions and then we reserve the last, let's say, what, 10-15 minutes? Is that good enough for the demo?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, awesome. So it's 1:24. So we are gonna go till, oh man, Kanav is like, I am determined. I'm gonna be the first one answering this question. It's 1:24. Let's take questions till 1:50, and then we are going to go into the demo that Always has for us. Stop by. I mean, don't leave after 1:50. You never know how you can use the AI tool. All right. For folks who have questions, please raise your hands. Let's limit it to one question per person. And by one question, I mean one question, not one tiny question, not one major question, one question. All right, Kanav, go for it.
Hey, thanks, Awais, for the presentation. Actually, I have two questions, so I'll just shoot them both out and you can pick whichever you want to answer. First question is about the cost. How much is the cost associated with the legal fees and the application itself? And the second question is, how does that O1 visa moves towards the green card in the long run?
Cool. Yeah, I can answer this. Actually, I'll just share my screen again. So the costs I wrote in the blog post here. So when I did it, it was in 2022, the primary fee was like $460. And then I also paid $2,500 for the premium processing fee. Unfortunately, as of April 1st, these fees have gone up, and there have been a lot of people complaining about this because it just seems like the fees increased by too much. So if your employer has 25 or fewer employees, it's a little bit of an increase. If you're applying via like a standard big company, then it's a lot more expensive. But hopefully your company is paying for it. So yeah, these are like just the government fees. And then for the lawyer, it's like I've heard quotes in the range from like 6K to 10K, I think. Yeah, and my fees were like around this range as well. For the green card, so I think that what my understanding is that the processes are like relatively different or relatively independent. So there's multiple different green card options. The one that people most commonly go for is like either the EB1 or the EB2 NIW, which are both like self-sponsored, or you can just do yourself. For the EB1, like many of the criteria are the same as what is on the O1, but the way that they're judged is just like at a higher level. Aditi knows a lot more about the EB1, so she might be able to answer. Yeah, and then I don't know, I'll pause. Aditi, do you want to say anything about the green card question?
The cost?
No, like the question about how the O1 relates to green cards.
Oh, so the O1, there was a new clause that was published by USCIS. And by the way, if you haven't yet, there is a place where you can sign up for newsletters or alerts from USCIS. I know it's very intimidating / traumatizing to see USCIS emails come into your mailbox, not gonna lie. But if you do, you're gonna get those live feedback straight from the horse's mouth. So one of those amendments, yeah, this is the one. Thank you. If you can drop it in the chat, Wes, that would be great. So I would highly encourage you to do this. And in one of those alerts, they said that although O1 does not guarantee an EB1 approval, it is looked at favorably because the criteria are the same. That's why it's a nice to have, but not a must have. Having O1 does not necessarily guarantee an EB1 approval. At the same time, it's a nice thing to have in your profile. It's kind of like if when you're applying for US universities, does your GPA make or break your case? No. There are other factors that are involved in it, but does a good GPA help? Absolutely. Isha, go for it.
Okay, thank you, Aditi. Thank you, Wes. So my question was, regarding my situation, I'm currently on like an F1 CPT. I exhausted my H1B attempts just last year. And is it possible for me to apply for O1 in the current visa status that I am on?
Aditi, you might also be better at this. I don't know how to answer for like specific cases, but I don't think there's like any reason why you can't apply for an O1 regardless of your previous visa
Did you
status.
say, Isha, did you say you're an F1?
So I was an I'm still an F1. My F1 is going to expire this year, but my OPT, STEM OPT expired last year. So I had exhausted all my 3 attempts at H1B the previous year. And just to continue with my employment, I transitioned to a CPT program.
Got it. Day 1 CPT, I'm assuming.
Day 1 CPT, correct.
Yeah. And you're saying, can you apply for O1?
Right. With this scenario, is it possible for me to apply for O1?
So two caveats. First of all, this is not legal advice, and even lawyers on public platforms will say this. So I'm not at the liberty of giving you legal advice because I'm not a legal expert. However, I'll tell you this: for O1, it's not self-petition for the most part. Because you're in a job and you're not on the founder track, you need to have the buy-in from your employer to apply for your O1. And that could be tricky given the appetite of your employer. So at the base level, O1s are much more expensive than H1Bs. So it really depends on your employer if they are even willing to apply for your O1, at which point you're probably going to be transferred to the legal team who's going to ask you to share your credentials. And more often than not, and this is not to discourage you, but I'm making you aware what are the roadblocks that you might face. So more often than not, you will be submitting a resume with some sort of clarification of what you have done that could count as extraordinary. And that legal team, depending on their appetite and expertise, they may tell you that, well, this person does not really qualify for O1. So what I would suggest is first have that conversation with your current employer that, hey, I'm wondering what is your take on an O1 visa? And more often than not, your boss will not know anything. So you will need to insist on talking with the HR and talk to the HR and get your ducks in a row. That is, work with somebody. I'm happy to help as well. Work with somebody who can help you articulate the extraordinariness of your profile, because your lawyers on your employer side, they don't represent you. They represent your employer. So they are going to try and save your employer. They're not going to try and save you. You need to save you, right? So first you need to ask for what's their take on an O1. And if they seem like, hey, Isha, happy to do whatever you want us to do, at that point, I would encourage you to get your ducks in a row before you even ask that question, apply for my O1, do I qualify?
So Aditi, on that question, I already had a conversation with my immigration team last year when my H1B attempts got exhausted, and the lawyers were not really on board with my profile. However, I got an external legal consultation, and the external lawyer said that my profile is in a good position to be pushed through for the O1 case. And that is my concern. Like, how do I bridge the gap between, like, an external lawyer saying that it is good and the company lawyer saying that, oh, we need more credentials to support your case?
So give those credentials to them. Look at how you presented your case to the external lawyer. Ask them, why do you think my case is good? Take that rationale, put it on the table of the lawyers in your company. That's one way. Or the other way is ask your company if they are willing to go with the other lawyer, which I think the chances of the second one happening is pretty low. But I would use the rationale that the external lawyers used to come to the conclusion that you do qualify for O1. Ask them why and take that and send it off to the internal lawyers. I hope that helps. We have to move to the other two people who are in line, but does that answer your question, Isha?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, Kamalendu and then Ali.
Thanks, Aves and Aditi, for doing this. My question is for the O1A visa. So there's this requirement of the high salary, right? So my question was, is there a metric that USCIS would use to verify the high requirement prong that we could qualify for? And if I'm allowed a second question, it's regarding change of employers. I have heard O1 visa isn't transferable. So does that mean each time you change employers, you have to apply for a new visa, or is an amendment enough? Or if you have any other advice? Thank you.
Yeah, I think these ones I can answer. So for the change of employer, my understanding is that it's technically you're filing a new visa, like you have to submit like a new form I-129 and you have to submit all of your evidence again. But the chances that it gets refused, given that you already have an approved O1, is like very low. Like you could essentially submit the exact same evidence with the new employer at the front. And then if you're, if you got an RFE, you can just point to the previous thing and say like, you've already approved this. So yeah, it's like technically it's not a direct transfer, but it's definitely possible from my understanding. And then the high compensation requirement. So as with like USCIS, everything is kind of subjective and very broad. So you could, in theory, like make any kind of argument about why you were highly compensated. The thing that I have seen typically is people will usually find like benchmark data online. So you can go to like levels.fyi, you can go to like the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, you can go to the like Career One Stop, and then essentially figure out like where your salary is in that range. And the higher the percentile, the better. So in my petition, the lawyer was able to say like this person's salary is in the top 10%, or like the 90th percentile. I feel like I've also had cases of people arguing at numbers like slightly below that. But I think if you're in like the top 10%, then you have like a really good chance.
Got it. Thank you.
The other thing that I would add is I have a friend, and the good and bad thing that of being immigrants is that you have a lot of immigrant friends, so you get news from the grapevine. One of my friends, she was a UX designer who had her O1 visa, and she got laid off twice. And each time they were on a 60-day clock. And the next time when she did get a job and they applied for her O1 visa, she got an RFE. And the RFE required her to show that how her O1 profile has improved over the years. And she could only rely on letters of rec. The suggestion that I would give is if you are looking for an O1 visa and you're looking to transfer employees, you should actively document the work that you're doing that can add to the O1 case should you choose to transfer and apply for another O1. Ali was it, and then Ankit, and then Nom.
Hello. Hi everyone. Again, Avas and Aditi, thanks for arranging this. This is super beneficial for everyone who's interested. So my question is a bit on the sides that is it possible that for a founders of a social impact venture actually apply and I see the metrics that Avas showcased on screen, and quite a number of those get checked off. There is news, there is awards that had been won, etc., etc. But the thing is that this social impact venture actually is kind of a side thing rather than the main full-time job. So essentially, I work a corporate job. It's in tech, but probably all the different markers over here, they're more in line with the side gig that I kind of do. So, what's your perspective on this? Does this in any way disadvantage someone, um, or would it actually be a benefit? What do you think?
Is the idea that you would like apply for an O1 with the social impact venture?
Yeah.
And what would be like the reason for doing that?
The reason why is that it has a lot of press. It has a number of awards. Critical role.
I guess it's like, would you like
articles.
stop working at your day job and switch full time to the social impact venture?
Probably if it goes and actually gets the required amount of funding, and actually the livelihood can get switched over, so for sure. But for now it is relatively small time, but has high impact, has had support from researchers from MIT, got funded by an institute, the Mental Institute at Harvard, and stuff like that, has a lot of international press. So yes, potentially to your question that it could happen, but realistically, will people pump in money, and can I actually switch over my livelihood to this? That is something to be seen. It's uncertain at this point.
Okay, yeah, I feel like you maybe do need or Aditi can also comment, but I think you might want to get like a more professional opinion, but what I know is that like the O1 is tied to an employer. So it's like if you were employed by the social impact venture, then you maybe wouldn't be able to work for your like full-time job. I don't know what current visa status you're on, so that's why it's like complicated. My understanding is like it's possible to have multiple O1s, but you can't like mix and match visas. So if you're on a H1B for the full-time employer, you can't also be on an O1 for the social impact venture. Like it has to be one or the other. And then,
Right, right. Yeah, currently I'm in. It would be an alien status. I have no visa whatsoever for now. So got it. Makes sense.
What's your what's your place of birth, Ali?
Pakistan.
Pakistan. Okay, so I don't know if this helps, but we have a lawyer coming in on the 25th. Her name is
Right.
Helen Partnow, and she's going to talk about EB2 NIW for non-academics, so mostly industry professionals and possibly, startup founders. So if you want to take your question and bring it to that event, that's an option for you.
Makes sense. Thanks a lot. We'll definitely bring it.
Yeah. So at the 25th at 12 to 1 p.m. You'll hear me talking about it again. Also,
Great. Looking forward.
Yep. Ankit and then Norman, and then we'll call it a day and move straight to Oasis O1 EI tool. Ankit, go for it.
Yeah, so I had a question related to awards and generally how do the USCC evaluate it when the awards are not from the United States? Because in my case, they're in Canada. So I'm just love to hear your perspective on that.
So the language I've seen is that if the award is like nationally or internationally recognized, so I don't think it has to be like a US specific award. I feel like USCIS counts awards from other countries, but you just have to be able to like argue that the award is like significant and nationally or internationally recognized. There's a chance that like there's a lower likelihood that USCIS already knows what the award is, and so you might have to like argue that more strongly. And you can do that through like press about the award, like who else has won it, how long has it been around, like is there a monetary component to it? Like, yeah, there's lots of different ways that you can argue it.
Okay, thank you.
Norman?
Yeah. So I run a very small IT services LLC in United States remotely from Germany, and I have a small team of just 4 to 5 contractors, freelancers working for me, and normally we generate a very small revenue that's less than $100,000 a year. So can this configuration somehow help me get O1?
So I think the idea would be that you become employed by the US entity for your O1. I think, yeah, one requirement is that you have to be able to demonstrate that you can pay yourself a salary when you're on the O1, and your O1 is kind of tied to your employer. So if you like become unemployed for some reason or can no longer pay your salary, then like the O1 is also no longer valid. So I think that would just be the thing that you have to like, yeah, make sure that you can argue.
I mean, for a startup, can a startup pay its founder? For example, in my case, can my LLC pay myself?
Yes, yeah. And it just has to be like, I think above minimum wage is what I've heard. I've heard like if you can pay yourself at least like 60K a year or something, like that's good enough. It doesn't have to be like on the H1B case, you have to pay like the prevailing wage, which is usually a lot higher. The O1 is like quite good for startups and small companies because you don't have to pay yourself that much, but you have to make sure you like can remain employed while you're on the O1.
Thank you.
Hopefully that answers your question. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Perfect. The moment of truth has finally arrived. Always go for
Great.
your O1 AI tool. I'm excited for people to see it because I was very excited to see it.
Cool. Yeah, let's get started. So I'll like intro it by just saying, so this point that I made earlier about like I feel like one of the most valuable things that the lawyer did for me was just make me aware of my options. And so what I want to build is a tool that like is much more intelligent about telling you like which visas you should go for, like which visas you might be eligible for. The starting point is it just looks at the O1 and just tries to assess you for O1 eligibility. And a big disclaimer that this is like still very much in development. Like I don't think this tool is anywhere near as good as doing a consultation with a lawyer. It will improve over time. It like probably will never be as good as talking to a lawyer who can help you like strategize. But I'm hoping that it can be a good like starting point or entry point for someone who's just like curious, wants to explore, wants to figure out like what their potential options are before going into a call with a lawyer. So cool. Yeah, the way it works is it basically like pulls information from your LinkedIn. Like that's the place to start. So I'll just use my own profile so we can see. And it like parses the information that's on your LinkedIn and pulls in your like work history, education. I'll enter where I live. You can also like make edits and stuff. So if there's anything incorrect here, you can change it. I'll remove some of the things that won't be so relevant. Maybe remove this one. I'll remove like the old internships. And yeah, so end up with kind of a career history that looks like this. And then you continue. A key piece of the O1 is that you do have to have a job offer. If you don't have one yet, so if you say like no, it will just say like, okay, but you'll have to figure this out before you apply. If you do have an employer, you can just enter that here. I'll put my one. Okay. I'll say founder. Okay, great. And then if you like already know which criteria you think you're likely to meet, you can select them here. I'll just keep going for now. But what you can do is you can basically like, oh, 1 second. Like you can enter awards and it will try to assess like the quality of those. So for me, it was like 100K in funding from like angel investors. And I'll just put like August 2022. And what it does is like there's an AI in the background that is like trained on like examples of people who have been successful in the past and like USCIS data and like updated regularly by immigration lawyers who can go in and say like how well is the AI assessing this? And then when you put your thing in, it will try to give you an evaluation. This could be wrong. Like I've definitely seen it be wrong a lot of the time. But my hope is that it will improve over time. So like, I don't know, Sam Altman had a quote recently where he was like, GPT-4 will be the worst language model you've ever used. And I'm hoping that like this product right now is like the worst it will ever be. And over time, it will get better and better at assessing the strength of these. So I can try other ones. I can try like Forbes. Let's say like 2021. So yeah, I can tell you like whether it's likely to be accepted. Does anyone want to try one? We can do a live demo.
Any volunteers? Okay, award. Venkat says Khan.
Oh, it's in the chat. 1 sec. Oh, Cannes Film Festival. I feel like that will definitely be accepted. Let's see. I don't know who's the awarding body for this.
Maybe Khan. I think that he's talking about the advertising Khan, but it's okay. It's fine.
Yeah, it's doesn't matter. Yeah.
Okay. We can see. This is new for me also, so we'll see what it says. So yeah, like the interesting thing is like because it's an LLM, it like already has a lot of knowledge about the world, so it can kind of like detect when things are well known or like less well known. And yeah, like I think if it's like a university specific award, it will usually catch that. It has to be like broader than that. I know we can try this panelist. CNN, you know. You can see. So yeah, like, I don't know, it's not the most intelligent, but you can see that it's like a lot better than just having to Google and figure stuff out yourself. And maybe we'll kind of like give you a starting point. So I'll continue on. High compensation. What this basically does is it goes through your work history and then tries to find the relevant benchmarks for you. Right now it's like limited to the US, but eventually it could be worldwide, or like I can kind of integrate more data sources. So if I click this one, it has basically pulled from Bureau of Labor Statistics and has found like the 90th percentile salary. So instead of me having to go and do a bunch of research, I just have to answer like, did I earn more than this? And it's a very simple yes or no. So I'll just put yes for now, and just pick a random number. For memberships, there's like a list of kind of pre-approved programs. These are ones that we know are likely to work. And if you want to pick a new one, you always can. So I don't know, I'll try like OnDeck. What's it called? Founders Fellowship. Whoops. Yeah, and like this is kind of a similar thing where it will try to evaluate whether this is likely to count or not. And yeah, post in the chat if you want to try. USCIS AAO, right now it does not, but so it's like something that I could imagine doing. So one of my visions for this product is like hopefully the UI can stay relatively the same as it is now, and the backend can just like keep improving over time. Okay, so we'll continue. For press, it's like you just enter a link to an article where you've been mentioned. So I'll pick this one that was included in my petition. And it goes out and figures out like what was the publication. It can assess like if it was significant. It can figure out whether you were mentioned by name, and essentially in the background like assess the strength of all your press mentions taken together. For scholarly articles, you just paste your Google Scholar profile if you have one. I don't have one, so I'll pick like a researcher who I know, this guy. And you just like paste it in, it pulls in all of your information, like counts the citations, assesses whether this publication is like likely to count according to USCIS criteria. This guy's like very well known, so all of his ones do. And judging is kind of similar. So like if you peer reviewed, I don't know, like ICML conference, it can detect, yeah, like peer reviewing counts. I don't know, I think if you do like hackathons, let's say like UCLA student hackathon. So yeah, it like knows that like judging the work of students doesn't usually count. If I do like a bigger one, I don't know, OpenAI machine learning hackathon. Oops, sorry. Yeah, so it's kind of like smart enough to figure out that like, okay, if you're judging at like a prestigious company, that should count. But if you're judging like a student event, it probably doesn't count. And yeah, and as always, like I'm really hoping that this will improve over time, like as people start using it and as I gather more and more data about what counts and what doesn't. It's still like relatively primitive right now, so I wouldn't trust it as much as I would trust in a real immigration lawyer.
So Awais, what are some like the most commonest queries that people put in?
So right now it's not like I haven't launched it to the public, so this is almost like a sneak peek for everyone.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe like 30 or 40 people have used it so far, like
Okay.
with me supervising.
If you
But
want to
yeah.
help make this tool better, reach out to Awais. Is there any place that they can sign up for this, Awais?
I would say you can just try the link. So maybe I'll paste the link in the chat.
Yeah, paste the link in
I
the
will.
chat so people have it.
Yeah.
And yeah, break it. Make it better
Please.
for all of us.
Yeah, like yeah, please try it out. Like it's I would say like don't share it on social media or like publicly
Yeah.
yet. Feel free to like tell your friends about it and try it out and see how well it works. And yeah, like reach out to me and help me help me improve it basically. And maybe one day this will be like something that could actually really do a good job of assessing ON
That's
eligibility.
That's wonderful. Just out of curiosity, can you put Globee or Stevie or IEEE.
And awards?
Yeah, maybe Globee Award, yeah, because that's something that everybody talks
How
about.
do, is that how you spell it?
I want to say.
Does it have a special name or something, or like is it just
Globee maybe?
Globee Award?
URL, GLOBEE Awards. Because there's, yeah, Globee Business Awards. Everybody and their mothers try to say that they have Globee.
Let's see. I have no idea. I don't know. It seems to think this counts. Is that true?
That's a stretch, you know, that's the thing, because one of the pitfalls of O1 and EB1 is that people are always trying to look for that like blueprint, that if somebody has cracked EB1 or O1 with this template, then I will use this exact one and my chances of success are high. But that loses the plot line of O1 and EB1, where you have to demonstrate that you are extraordinary in your own unique way.
Yeah.
Globee has turned out, for better or for worse, like that common thread across a couple of people's profiles that can be a double-edged sword, where a USCIS officer can see and say that, well, how are you different from all these other people? Or they can say that, well, other people have won Globee. Clearly, it's a sign of success, so you have it. So, hence, that's why I was curious about that. But this is great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Always.
So, yeah, and it's like, as you can see, like I you know, maybe most immigration lawyers would say no to this, and like right now is just wrong. But yeah, now that I know this, I can go into the back end and figure out how to like reject Globee Awards or
Don't reject
give
it.
it a no, or whatever the correct answer is.
Yeah, but is there a place where folks can give you suggestions?
I would say maybe, or you can just like, I just created this Discord yesterday, so it's very empty, but if you have like product feedback or anything, you can just join this, or you can like email me, or yeah, like get in touch with me through Aditi's Slack.
Yeah, Oasis is there, by the way. I'm going to put the Slack link again in case folks joined in and they were not they were not able to grab it. We still have 3 more minutes. Does anybody want to sneak one last question to Oasis? Also, Oasis, are you done with the demo? I didn't even ask.
Yeah, pretty good. I'll just show like one last thing, but someone can ask a question in the meantime.
Oh, go ahead, Isha.
Yes, so I had a question. So I understand that if you get accepted in some form of accelerator, it counts as a membership. Does it check that criteria?
Yes, provided that the accelerator is like competitive to get into. So you have to demonstrate that like it's not like really easy to get into, and it's not like pay to play, basically. So if you like pay to become a member, that usually won't be accepted. And yeah, typically the way to argue for memberships is if you can show that like the acceptance rate of the accelerator is like below 10%, something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Yeah, and then this is the last thing I was going to show, which is like just the output of this is a report that just like summarizes everything you've provided. And one of the places I want to take this is to build like a network of lawyers who can like access these and look at them and then contact you if they think they would be able to do a good job with your profile. Because I do think lawyers tend to specialize, like some are very academic, some are much more industry focused. And it can be hard to like find the right lawyer. So one of the things I want the product to do is be a little like a comparison website where you enter information once and then can get introduced to many like lawyers or immigration practitioners.
Awesome. You're right on time. Thank you so much, Oasis. This has been incredibly helpful. Any last one piece of advice for folks who are applying for O1? What would you say, hindsight?
I would say, yeah, I mean, my main insight for me was that it's like more achievable than it seems just by reading the USCIS guidelines, and there are like lots and lots of different ways to argue for your extraordinariness. So yeah, hopefully this tool can like help you discover some of them. I think like a good immigration lawyer usually helps you discover some of them. And yeah, like just reach out to me if I can be helpful in any way. Like always very happy to help.
Also, Awais did not say it, but I don't want to keep this as a secret, but Awais did get his EB2 NIW approved as
Oh.
well. And he's well on his way to becoming a permanent resident of the US. What's up? What are you going to do after you get that green card? Dang.
We'll see. I mean, the fun thing was that I actually like self-prepared the petition because I was like, oh, if I'm working on immigration, I should like try to understand immigration deeply. So I kind of wrote the petition myself and then had a lawyer just review it at the very end and make sure it wasn't like way off. So that was a fun experience. It's a lot of work to prepare a good petition, I will say. It made me appreciate the work that lawyers do a lot.
Congrats again. I mean, again, Awais, I thank you for joining the Slack community. Thank you for volunteering your time. Like I always say, if you want to reach out to Awais, if you want to send people a private link for them to chat one-on-one with you, please go ahead and do that. But other than that, I want to give it up to folks who made time to come here on Saturday and learn about something as dull as immigration. But we have to do this. We have to work this out. So congratulations to you for making time and prioritizing your future. So great job. Have a good weekend, everybody. Take care. Bye.